Hi, and welcome to your Urban Connection. And remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, I want to talk today about the Supreme Court just 2 days ago ruled an Alabama congressional district that had been drawn to gerrymander district to reduce the number of African American voting districts to one. Now, all the while, the African American population in the state of Alabama is 27%. So you're saying that 27% of the population of a state is only entitled to have one congressional district in that state? Well, on a 5-4 decision, the United States Supreme Court ruled that gerrymandered map to be unconstitutional. They ruled in favor of having more Black participation in the voting process. So the state of Alabama will have to redraw the map and include more districts that would be allowing African Americans to vote in a district that is representative of the makeup of the populations in their state. Now, here's the interesting part. Like I said, this was a 5-4 decision. Now, of the 4 dissenters, one of those people said in a dissenting letter that the Supreme Court should have goaded the Voting Rights Act. That's right. One of them said that the Supreme Court should have gutted the Voting Rights Act, an act that's been around since 1964. Now, I want to give you a choice here. I'm going to give 3 names, and you tell me which one of these Supreme Court justices you think would have made that statement. Choice number 1, Samuel Alito. Choice number 2, Judge Kavanaugh. Choice number 3, John Roberts. Well, strike that. I'm going to remove John Roberts. Choice number 3, Clarence Thomas. Now, if you pick choice number 1, Sam Alito, or choice number 2, Kavanaugh, you would be mistaken. But if you chose choice number 3, Clarence Thomas, you'd be right on the money. That's right, Clarence Thomas had the audacity to say that the Supreme Court should have gutted the Voting Rights Act. Now, I'm led to ask this question, and I've never asked this before. But what law school did Clarence Thomas attend? And the reason I ask that question is because of, after watching Clarence Thomas for over 30 years on the bench, Clarence Thomas has never shown one iota of having the ability to interpret written law. He's never done it. And I want to tell you that I oftentimes lately wonder who is forming his opinions about the written law? Is it his wife, Jenny Thomas, who is a former cult member, who is an ultra-right conservative? You know, here's the thing that gets me. For over 30 years, Clarence Thomas has never, not one time, spoken up for, stood up for, nor uplifted anything that would be in advancement of African American people. Not one time. Now, here's a guy that was put on the bench by the late George W. Bush to replace the late Thurgood Marshall. Now, Thurgood Marshall, in my opinion, was one of the best legal minds of my generation. And he was replaced with Clarence Thomas. As I said, Clarence Thomas does not know how to interpret the written law. He's shown that time and time again. Now, this man is willing to accept, without any shame, without any embarrassments, accept all kinds of expensive gifts from millionaire and billionaire donors, and claims that he didn't know he was supposed to report it. Now, he didn't realize that the Supreme Court was supposed to be guided by ethics. He didn't see anything wrong with accepting these gifts. He didn't understand how that would bring shame on the United States Supreme Court. He was only looking out for Clarence Thomas. And that's what he's done the entire 30 years he's been on the bench. His attitude is, I got mine. You get yours the best way you can. And I've seen this movie before. And there's a name for people like Clarence Thomas. And I won't use the name here at this time, but I will tell you that the name certainly does fit the actions, the attitudes, and the behavior of one Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. It's a shame. It's outlandish. It's outrageous. It's disingenuous for someone who came from where Clarence Thomas came from to sit on a bench for 30 years and disavow anything, any action, any law that was aimed to benefit in any way, shape, or fashion or form African Americans. Clarence Thomas, I am ashamed of you and your behavior and your attitude and your legacy. It is very unfortunate that you have a lifetime position because you don't deserve one day of the 30 years that you've been on that Supreme Court to be the appointee to replace a man who had integrity, principle, and a legal mind that was second to none in Thurgood Marshall. You are no Thurgood Marshall. You're not even close. You're not even in the same ballpark. You're not even in the same generation. It's unfortunate that George Bush, the first, George Bush Sr., could not have seen his way to pass on your nomination, or even withdraw your nomination from consideration once Anita Hill and other Black females came forward to lodge complaints against your sexual misconduct. It's unfortunate that the Democrats, including now President Joe Biden, chose to ignore the voices of those African American females who, I have to believe, were telling the truth. They were all consistent in their claims. It's unfortunate for those Black females. It's unfortunate for the entire African American community in the United States. It's unfortunate for the United States Supreme Court that you've had to deal with a man of no integrity, no shame, and very little legal intelligence for 30 years. I hope this man will step to the plate, do the right thing, and recognize the harm that he's done in his 30 years on the bench, and bring himself to do the right thing and resign from the Supreme Court. He's proven to be unfit from a standpoint of ethics, from a standpoint of not having the legal intelligence to be able to interpret the written law. He's unfit to be a United States Supreme Court justice. Wake up. Wake up, Clarence Thomas. Smell the coffee, buddy. You are and have been a disaster for the African Americans in the United States. Okay, folks, that's my show. I'm out of here. Thank you for watching.